All right, let's dive into one of the Gospel's most puzzling stories, the time Jesus cursed a fig tree. I know, it sounds pretty weird, almost out of character, right? But this single act was actually this incredible, profound, living parable. And today, we're going to break down exactly why.
So this is the question, isn't it? The whole story really hinges on this one central mystery. It just seems completely unfair. I mean, why would you get mad at a tree for following its own natural seasonal cycle? This very question is what unlocks the entire meaning of what's happening here.
And look, the Gospel of Mark even spells it right out for us. The text explicitly says it was not the season for figs. So, what gives? What is really going on? Is this just a moment of random frustration, or is something much, much deeper being communicated?
Okay, so to figure this out, we have to look at this event not just as some random act, but as a deliberate, powerful demonstration. So let's start by just examining the scene itself.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Right off the bat, this whole thing just feels jarring. The action seems unjust, maybe even a little petty. And it's that initial reaction that should tell us, hey, pay attention. There's more going on here than meets the eye.
All right, so here's where it gets really interesting. The first clue to cracking this case, it's not in some ancient theological text. Nope, it's in botany. You heard me. The key is understanding how fig trees actually work in that part of the world.
And this is the detail that changes everything. You see, fig trees in ancient Israel have this really unique growth cycle. They produce these small, early, edible buds called breba. And the most critical detail is when they show up.
So, these breba figs, they grow on the tree's old wood from the previous year, and they appear either just before or at the exact same time as the new leaves of spring. Now, they weren't the big main harvest, but they were the first sign of a healthy, fruit-bearing tree.
So this created a kind of unspoken rule of nature that, everyone back then would have just understood. Leaves were a promise. If you saw leaves on a fig tree, their presence basically signaled that those early figs, the breba, should also be on the branches.
And that's the key. The tree wasn't cursed for being out of season. It was cursed for its deception. It had all the outward signs of life and fruitfulness. It had the leaves, but on the inside it was barren. It was basically a case of botanical false advertising.
Okay, so now that we've got the plant science part down, we can zoom out a bit. Because this wasn't just a lesson in agriculture. This was a prophecy in action, and it used a powerful symbol that had been around for a very, very long time.
You see, for centuries in the Hebrew scriptures, the fig tree was a super common metaphor for the nation of Israel. The prophets used it again and again to talk about the spiritual health of the nation. A tree full of fruit meant spiritual vitality. A barren one meant spiritual decay. Now check out how the story is actually told in the Gospel of Mark. It's fascinating. Scholars have this cool name for it. They call it a Markan sandwich. See how the story of the fig tree, first the curse and then the withering, is wrapped around another event, the cleansing of the temple. That is not a coincidence. The two stories are meant to explain each other.
And here's the direct parallel. It's a one-to-one comparison. The fig tree had leaves, a vibrant outward appearance, but no fruit. The temple system in Jerusalem? Well, it had all the outward signs of religion, the rituals, the sacrifices, the beautiful buildings. But Jesus found it spiritually barren. It was lacking the true fruit of justice and mercy.
But wait, there's one final layer here, and it goes even deeper. To really get the full impact, we have to rewind the tape all the way back to the book of Genesis, to the very first time fig leaves are ever mentioned in the Bible.
Remember the story? In the Garden of Eden, right after the first sin, what's the very first thing humanity does to try and deal with their newfound shame and guilt? They grab fig leaves. They try to cover themselves up.
So think about that. From their very first appearance in the story, fig leaves carry this powerful symbolic weight. They represent our own human attempts to look righteous, to cover up our flaws, to make ourselves presentable through our own works, instead of dealing with the real problem underneath.
And this creates this incredible connection that runs through the entire biblical story. In Eden, fig leaves are used to cover personal shame. In Jerusalem, the leafy tree covers a national spiritual barrenness. In both cases, the leaves are just an external covering for a much deeper internal problem.
So this whole idea of covering takes us on a journey through the entire Bible. It starts with the totally inadequate covering of fig leaves, then it moves to the first sacrifice God provides. It's foreshadowed in the temple system, and then it finds its ultimate resolution at the cross, the final, true covering for sin.
So you see, when you put all these pieces together, the story of the cursed fig tree isn't about a random burst of anger at all. It's a carefully constructed, living parable. It's a powerful statement that God is interested in genuine spiritual fruit, not just the outward appearance of religion.
And that really brings the whole thing home for us, doesn't it? It leaves us with a pretty challenging question to think about. In our own lives, do we have plenty of leaves, activity, knowledge, religious stuff we do, but maybe we lack the actual fruit of a transformed life? It's a question that echoes from this ancient story right into our world today.